Good morning. Thank you for joining me today. We are going to be in 2 Samuel chapter 2, verse 12 through chapter 3, verse 39. Then Abner, son of Ner, and the servants of Ishbosheth, son of Saul, went out from Mahanaim to Gibeon. Joab, son of Zeruiah, and the servants of David also went out and confronted them at the pool of Gibeon. One group stationed themselves on one side of the pool, and the other group on the other side of the pool. Abner said to Joab, "Let the soldiers get up and fight before us." Joab said, "So be it." So they got up and crossed over by number, 12 belonging to Benjamin, and to Ishbosheth, son of Saul, and 12 from the servants of David. As they grappled with one another, each one stabbed his opponent with his sword, and they fell dead together. So that place is called the Field of Flints. It is in Gibeon. Now the battle was very severe that day. Abner and the men of Israel were overcome by David's soldiers. The 3 sons of Zeruiah were there, Joab, Abishai, and Asahel. Now Asahel was as quick on his feet as one of the gazelles in the field. Asahel chased Abner without turning to the right or to the left as he followed Abner. Then Abner turned and asked, "Is that you, Asahel?" He replied, "Yes, it is." Abner said to him, "Turn aside to your right or to your left, capture one of the soldiers, and take his equipment for yourself." But Asahel was not willing to turn aside from following him. So Abner spoke again to Asahel, "Turn aside from following me. I do not want to strike you to the ground. How then could I show my face in the presence of Joab your brother?" But Asahel refused to turn aside. So Abner struck him in the abdomen with the back end of his spear. The spear came out his back. Asahel collapsed on the spot and died there, right before Abner. Everyone who now comes to the place where Asahel fell dead pauses in respect. So Joab and Abishai chased Abner. At sunset they came to the hill of Ammah, near Giah, on the way to the wilderness of Gibeon. The Benjaminites formed their ranks behind Abner and were like a single army, standing at the top of a certain hill. Then Abner called out to Joab, "Must the sword devour forever? Don't you realize that this will turn bitter in the end? When will you tell the people to turn aside from pursuing their brothers?" Joab replied, "As surely as God lives, if you had not said this, it would have been morning before the people would have abandoned pursuit of their brothers." Then Joab blew the ram's horn, and all the people stopped in their tracks. They stopped chasing Israel and ceased fighting. Abner and his men went through the Arabah all that night. They crossed the Jordan River and went through the whole region of Bitron and came to Mahanaim. Now Joab returned from chasing Abner and assembled all the people. 19 of David's soldiers were missing, in addition to Asahel. But David's soldiers had slaughtered the Benjaminites and Abner's men, and all 360 men had died. They took Asahel's body and buried him in his father's tomb at Bethlehem. Joab and his men then traveled all that night and reached Hebron by day. However, the war was prolonged between the house of Saul and the house of David. David was becoming steadily stronger, while the house of Saul was becoming increasingly weaker. Now sons were born to David in Hebron. His firstborn was Amnon, born to Ahinoam the Jezreelite. His second son was Chileab, born to Abigail, the widow of Nabal the Carmelite. His third son was Absalom, the son of Maacah, daughter of King Talmai of Geshur. His fourth son was Adonijah, the son of Haggith. His fifth son was Shephatiah, the son of Abital. His sixth son was Ithream, born to David's wife Eglah. These sons were all born to David in Hebron. As the war continued between the house of Saul and the house of David, Abner was becoming more influential in the house of Saul. Now Saul had a concubine named Rizpah, daughter of Aiah. Ishbosheth said to Abner, "Why did you have sexual relations with my father's concubine?" These words of Ishbosheth really angered Abner, and he said, "Am I the head of a dog that belongs to Judah? This very day I am demonstrating loyalty to the house of Saul, your father, and to his relatives and his friends. I have not betrayed you into the hand of David, yet you have accused me of sinning with this woman today. God will severely judge Abner if I do not do for David exactly what the Lord has promised him." namely, to transfer the kingdom from the house of Saul and to establish the throne of David over Israel and over Judah, all the way from Dan to Beersheba. Ishbosheth was unable to answer Abner with even a single word because he was afraid of him. Then Abner sent messengers to David, saying, "To whom does the land belong? Make an agreement with me, and I will do whatever I can to cause all Israel to turn to you." So David said, "Good, I will make an agreement with you. I ask only one thing from you. You will not see my face until you bring Saul's daughter, Michal, when you come to visit me." David sent messengers to Ishbosheth, son of Saul, with this demand: "Give me my wife Michal, whom I acquired, 400 Philistine foreskins." So Ishbosheth took her from her husband, Paltiel, son of Laish. Her husband went along behind her, weeping all the way to Bahurim. Finally, Abner said to him, "Go back." So he returned home. Abner advised the elders of Israel, "Previously, you were wanting David to be your king. Act now, for the Lord has said to David, 'By the hand of my servant David, I will save my people Israel from the Philistines and from all their enemies.'" Then Abner spoke privately with the Benjaminites. Abner also went to Hebron to inform David privately of all that Israel and the entire house of Benjamin had agreed to do. When Abner, accompanied by 20 men, came to David in Hebron, David prepared a banquet for Abner and the men who were with him. Abner said to David, "Let me leave, so that I may go and gather all Israel to my lord the king, so that they may make an agreement with you. Then you will rule over all that you desire." So David sent Abner away, and he left in peace. Now David's soldiers and Joab were coming back from a raid, bringing a great deal of plunder with them. Abner was no longer with David in Hebron, for David had sent him away, and he had left in peace. When Joab and all the army that was with him arrived, Joab was told, "Abner the son of Ner came to the king. He sent him away, and he left in peace." So Joab went to the king and said, "What have you done? Abner has come to you. Why would you send him away? Now he's gone on his way. You know Abner, the son of Ner. Surely he came here to spy on you, and to determine when you leave and when you return, and to discover everything that you are doing." Then Joab left David and sent messengers after Abner. They brought him back from the well of Sirah, but David was not aware of it. When Abner returned to Hebron, Joab took him aside at the gate, as if to speak privately with him. Joab then stabbed him in the abdomen and killed him, avenging the shed blood of his brother Asahel. When David later heard about this, he said, "I and my kingdom are forever innocent before the Lord of the shed blood of Abner son of Ner. May his blood whirl over the head of Joab and the entire house of his father. May the males of Joab's house never cease to have someone with a running sore or a skin disease, or one who works at the spindle, or one who falls by the sword, or one who lacks food." So Joab and his brother Abishai killed Abner, because he had killed their brother Asahel in Gibeon during the battle. David instructed Joab and all the people who were with him, "Tear your clothes, put on sackcloth, lament before Abner." Now King David followed behind the funeral bier. So they buried Abner in Hebron. The king cried loudly over Abner's grave, and all the people wept too. The king chanted the following lament for Abner: "Should Abner have died like a fool? Your hands were not bound, and your feet were not put into irons. You fell the way one falls before criminals." All the people wept over him again. Then all the people came and encouraged David to eat food while it was still day. But David took an oath, saying, "God will punish me severely if I taste bread or anything whatsoever before the sun sets." All the people noticed this, and it pleased them. In fact, everything the king did pleased all the people. All the people and all Israel realized on that day that the killing of Abner, son of Ner, was not done at the king's instigation. Then the king said to his servants, "Do you not realize that a great leader has fallen this day in Israel? Today I am weak, even though I am anointed as king. These men, the sons of Zeruiah, are too much for me to bear. May the Lord punish appropriately the one who has done this evil thing." So first off, there's as one might expect if there's a country with two rulers present in it, there's something of a civil war that breaks out. At Gibeon here, between Joab's um, between between David's general Joab and Ishbosheth's general Abner. And it looks like they have some sort of representative combat next to this pool, and they all kill each other at once. So then fighting breaks out in earnest, and Joab's brother Asahel pursues the enemy general Abner and ends up dying in the middle of it. So Joab has a bone to pick with Abner. But Abner eventually defects here, and that Ishbosheth insults him. So he wants to give the whole kingdom over to David. And he does a lot to actually get that in place. He gets he talks with the Benjaminites and the elders of Israel to advise them to have David as their king. So, it's interesting though that I'm not sure where this question came from, but how I heard it asked recently, like, how did this division between Judah and Israel get there? And you kind of already have this at the very start, like immediately after Saul. You have David seizing Judah, and Saul's kingdom being the rest of Israel at that point. So, kind of interesting. Yeah, and then Joab straight up murders Abner, like a thief. David mourns over him. Anyway, carrying on. John chapter 13, verse 1 through verse 30. Just before the Passover feast, Jesus knew that his time had come to depart from this world to the Father. Having loved his own who were in the world, he now loved them to the very end. The evening meal was in progress, and the devil had already put into the heart of Judas Iscariot, Simon's son, that he should betray Jesus. Because Jesus knew that the Father had handed all things over to him, and that he had come from God and was going back to God, he got up from the meal, removed his outer clothes, took a towel, and tied it around himself. He poured water into the wash basin, and began to wash the disciples' feet, and to dry them with the towel he had wrapped around himself. Then he came to Simon Peter. Peter said to him, "Lord, are you going to wash my feet?" Jesus replied, "You do not understand what I am doing now, but you will understand after these things." Peter said to him, "You will never wash my feet." Jesus replied, "If I do not wash you, you have no share with me." Simon Peter said to him, "Lord, wash not only my feet, but also my hands and my head." Jesus replied, "The one who is bathed needs only to wash his feet, but is completely clean. And you disciples are clean, but not every one of you." For Jesus knew the one who was going to betray him. For this reason he said, "Not every one of you is clean." So when Jesus had washed their feet, and put his outer clothing back on, he took his place at the table again, and said to them, "Do you understand what I have done for you? You call me teacher and Lord, and do so correctly, for that is what I am. If I then, your Lord and teacher, have washed your feet, you too ought to wash one another's feet. For I have given you an example, you should do just as I have done for you. I tell you the solemn truth, the slave is not greater than his master, nor is the one who is sent as a messenger greater than the one who sent him. If you understand these things, you will be blessed if you do them. What I am saying does not refer to all of you. I know the ones I have chosen, but this is to fulfill the scripture. The one who eats my bread has turned against me. I am telling you this now before it happens, so that when it happens you may believe that I am he. I tell you the solemn truth. Whoever accepts the one I send accepts me, and whoever accepts me accepts the one who sent me. When he had said these things, Jesus was greatly distressed in spirit and testified, "I tell you the solemn truth. One of you will betray me." The disciples began to look at one another, worried and perplexed to know which of them he was talking about. One of his disciples, the one Jesus loved, was at the table to the right of Jesus in a place of honor. So Simon Peter gestured to this disciple to ask Jesus who it was he was referring to. Then the disciple whom Jesus loved leaned back against Jesus' chest and asked him, "Lord, who is it?" Jesus replied, "It is the one to whom I will give this piece of bread after I have dipped it in the dish." Then he dropped the piece of bread in the dish and gave it to Judas Iscariot, Simon's son. And after Judas took the piece of bread, Satan entered into him. Jesus said to him, "What you are about to do, do quickly." Now one of those present at the table understood why Jesus said. Now none of those present at the table understood why Jesus said this to Judas. Some thought that because Judas had the money box, Jesus was telling him to buy whatever they needed for the feast, or to give something to the poor. Judas took the piece of bread and went out immediately. Now it was night. I wonder what was going through his head at the moment. Judas' head. Jesus straight up says to him, "What you're going to do it quickly." And then he goes out, and it's just like, he knows. And yet you're still going to do this? Yeah. His heart must have been pretty hard to be in the presence of Jesus and to witness all of the miraculous happenings and to even perform some yourself, and yet still end up betraying him. Yeah. And I think previous to this, the story starting in verse 5, where Jesus pours water into a wash basin and starts washing the disciples' feet, is important in that anyone who follows Jesus necessarily follows the example that he has left to us. And just like he said in 16, the slave is not greater than his master. In our case, Jesus is our master. Nor is the one who is sent as a messenger greater than the one who sent him. And Jesus sends us into the world. So in the same way that Jesus poured himself out and became a servant for us, so too should we pour ourselves out as servants for others. So, phone call. So, carrying on, Psalm 119, verses 1 through 16. This is the one that has the Hebrew alphabet for each of the stanzas, I guess. I don't know what's bigger than a stanza. Okay. Verse 1, Aleph. How blessed are those whose actions are blameless, who obey the law of the Lord. How blessed are those who observe his rules and seek him with all their heart, who moreover do no wrong, but follow in his footsteps. You demand that your precepts be carefully kept. If only I were predisposed to keep your statutes, then I would not be ashamed. If I were focused on all your commands, I will give you sincere thanks. When I learn your just regulations, I will keep your statutes. Do not completely abandon me. Bet. How can a young person maintain a pure life? By guarding it according to your instructions. With all my heart I seek you. Do not allow me to stray from your commands. In my heart I store up your words, so I might not sin against you. You deserve praise, O Lord. Teach me your statutes. With my lips I proclaim all the regulations you have revealed. I rejoice in the lifestyle prescribed by your rules as if they were riches of all kinds. I will meditate on your precepts and focus on your behavior. I find delight in your statutes. I do not forget your instructions. Yeah. The psalmist realizes that ultimately we are not, as it says in verse 5, predisposed to keep your statutes, but instead we find ourselves constantly wanting to do the wrong thing. Yeah. I really value Psalm 119:9 and 11. How can a young person maintain a pure life? By guarding it according to your instructions. And in my heart I store up your words, so I might not sin against you. I think that's why things like Bible study are so important, because it makes us aware of the instructions of God and allows us to better attempt to keep those instructions. So, and finally, Proverbs, chapter 15, verses 29 through 30. The Lord is far from the wicked, but he hears the prayer of the righteous. A bright look brings joy to the heart, and good news gives health to the body. Cool. Well, thank you so much for joining me today. Hope you have a great day.